"Your kind has no place in this building," he hissed, his words like ice picks. "One word from me, and I can make you disappear." I just watched him, a single thought running through my mind. The show is about to begin. The day started like any other Tuesday. I'd chosen my outfit with deliberate care. A beige silk sleeveless top and perfectly tailored black trousers. Understated. Professional. The kind of attire that shouldn't attract a second glance. As I stepped through the revolving doors of the Philadelphia FBI field office at exactly 8:47 a.m., the air hit me first, cold, sterile, smelling of industrial cleaner with an undercurrent of tension. The polished marble floors reflected the harsh fluorescent lights, making every footstep echo with unnatural clarity. Today wasn't about being the director. It was about seeing the agency from the ground up, through the eyes of someone they wouldn't expect. And I found exactly what I was looking for. His name tag read Miller. He stood behind the security desk, a man whose thinning, greasy blonde hair was plastered to his scalp. His uniform collar was frayed, but the badge pinned to his chest was polished to a blinding shine, a small, pathetic symbol of a power he clung to desperately. His eyes, small and pale, locked onto me the second I entered his line of sight, and a flicker of something ugly, a mix of boredom and disdain, crossed his face. As I approached, he didn't even bother with a greeting. "ID and purpose of visit," he grunted, his gaze fixed on a spot somewhere over my left shoulder. I slid my standard federal identification across the counter. It was my real ID, just without the title that would have sent him scrambling. He snatched it, glanced at it for less than a second, and then, with a smirk that twisted his thin lips, he tossed it onto the floor on his side of the desk. "Pick it up," he commanded. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't sweat. Instead, a profound, chilling calm washed over me. This was it, the live demonstration. I bent slowly, my movements measured and deliberate, retrieving the plastic card from the grimy floor. As I straightened up, I met his gaze. "I don't care what fake ID you have," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "This is a secure federal facility." He gestured to a small, metal table next to his station. "Empty your purse. Everything." I watched as a white man in a sharp business suit walked up. "Morning, Jim," Miller called out, waving him through with a lazy flick of his wrist. A white woman followed, her own purse uninspected, and he buzzed her through with a practiced smile. "Have a good one, Ms. Roberts." Then his attention snapped back to me, his expression hardening into a mask of official procedure. I began to methodically remove each item from my purse, placing my wallet, my keys, a protein bar, and a small notebook onto the cold surface. He hovered over me, his breath smelling faintly of stale coffee, scrutinizing every object as if I were assembling a bomb right in front of him. He was performing, and I was his unwilling audience. He beckoned to his partner at the next station, a man whose name tag read Davies. "Hey, Davies," he said, just loud enough for me to hear. "Got another one trying to slip through. Probably cleaning staff who doesn't know her place." Davies, an older man with tired eyes and shoulders slumped in what looked like permanent defeat, glanced over. I saw a flash of discomfort in his eyes, a momentary wince, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. He just shrugged and looked away. His silence was a form of consent, a quiet vote in Miller's favor. As I carefully repacked my bag, I looked directly into Miller's eyes. "Do you know who I am?" I asked, my voice quiet but carrying through the cavernous lobby. He let out a harsh, barking laugh. Just another nobody trying to be somebody. He had no idea how right he was. I was about to become somebody he would never, ever forget. My movements were slow, dignified. I refused to let him see any reaction other than calm resolve. As I held my ID, I met his gaze again. "May I have your name and badge number, please?" My voice was even, carrying the quiet authority of someone who was used to being obeyed on the first request. Miller scoffed, a muscle twitching in his jaw. He instinctively moved his hand to cover his name tag. "Why? So you can file a complaint that'll never be read." The fluorescent lights caught the sheen of sweat on his hairline, a stark contrast to the building's aggressive air conditioning. "I have an appointment," I stated, not as a defense, but as a simple fact. "With who?" he demanded, snatching the desk phone. He watched me with a look of performative suspicion as he dialed, deliberately misspelling my name for the person on the other end. Nope, no Alina Davis on today's list, he announced with theatrical finality. No appointment exists. Check again, I suggested calmly. Perhaps under Director Davis. His laugh was even louder this time, a desperate, braying sound. Listen, lady, there's no appointment. You need to leave now, or I'll have you removed for trespassing. His hand drifted towards the butt of his weapon, an unconscious, pathetic display of escalation. Across the lobby, I saw a young intern. I recognized him from a briefing memo. His name was Alex. Look up from a file. Recognition dawned on his face. He knew. He'd seen the memo about my surprise inspections. He took a half step forward, then froze, a war playing out on his face between his conscience and his career. I'm not leaving, I said, my voice level. I have legitimate business here. That's when Miller stepped out from behind the security desk, invading my personal space. That's it. I'm calling backup. His voice rose, intentionally creating a scene, painting me as the aggressor. He wanted an audience for his power trip. You're making a mistake. I warned, not as a plea, but as a statement of fact. His radio was already in his hand. We'll see about that. He gestured to a hard plastic chair against the wall. Seat. Now, I assessed my options. Causing a scene would only muddy the waters. Documenting this was everything. I took the seat, my back straight, my hands folded in my lap. For 23 minutes, I noted the exact time on the large digital clock on the wall. He made me wait. He processed 17 other people. 15 white, 2 Asian, all with a smile and a wave. I sat there, on display, a cautionary tale for anyone else who didn't belong. Finally, he commanded, stand up. He pulled on a pair of latex gloves with a slow, theatrical snap. Enhanced security check. I rose, my eyes locked on his. Remove your jacket. Shoes too. His voice was loud enough for passers-by to turn and stare. People like you are known to conceal items. People like you. The words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. I complied, my mind a cold, efficient machine, cataloging every violation, every witness, every camera angle. Arms out, his gloved hands ran along my sides, lingering for a moment too long on my ribs. Standard procedure, he added, the smirk on his face telling a different story. Just then, Alex, the intern, approached, holding out a paper cup of water. His hand was trembling. Thought you might need this, he said, leaning in to whisper, I know who you are. I gave him a subtle shake of my head, my eyes conveying the message, stand down. Don't get involved. But Miller saw it. He lunged forward, knocking the cup from my hand. Water splashed across the marble floor. You don't interact with suspects, he barked at Alex. Get back to your desk, or I'll report you for interfering. Throughout it all, I never broke eye contact. I was no longer just a woman being humiliated. I was a camera, recording everything. I was a historian, preserving this moment for the record. And I was a judge, preparing to deliver a sentence. As Miller turned to grab his radio, it crackled to life. Miller, report to Station 2 for package inspection. The interruption clearly annoyed him. Don't move, he ordered, stalking away. That was the opening I needed. My movements were fluid, economical. I reached into my jacket pocket, my fingers finding my personal phone, my executive assistant, and I had established a series of coded signals for situations exactly like this. I typed 3 words into a secure messaging app. Protocol Phoenix initiated. Nothing more was needed. Across town, at FBI headquarters, my assistant, Coleman, would see that message. He wouldn't question it. He would simply act, setting in motion a chain of events that Miller couldn't possibly imagine. Miller returned, his eyes narrowed with renewed suspicion. In here, he commanded, gesturing toward a small, windowless security office. The room was a sterile box, a metal desk, 2 chairs bolted to the floor, and a faint smell of disinfectant. He closed the door with a heavy, deliberate click that echoed in the small space. Phone, he demanded, his palm outstretched. I handed it over. It had already served its purpose. He locked it in a metal drawer with a theatrical flourish. Then he leaned against the desk, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, menacing whisper. "You know," he began, "people who don't belong. They disappear all the time in our system. Paperwork gets lost. Access gets denied." He smiled, a chilling expression that didn't reach his cold, dead eyes. "No one would even look for someone like you." There it was, the direct threat, the very reason for this entire operation. He stepped out for a moment to retrieve some forms, and my gaze immediately shot to the small security camera mounted in the upper corner of the room. I positioned myself directly in its view, facing the lens. "Officer Miller has threatened that people who don't belong disappear all the time," I stated, my voice clear and steady, reciting his exact words for the permanent record. He further stated, "No one would even look for someone like you," while confiscating my personal property and detaining me without cause. My eyes caught the landline on the desk. I lifted the receiver and dialed a number I knew by heart, the direct line to the command center's silent alert system. "Authentication code 8736 Delta, I said into the phone. "Silent protocol. Field office, Philadelphia. Security desk. No intervention." I replaced the receiver just as I heard his footsteps approaching. The scene was now split. In that barren room, I sat composed, a prisoner by choice. Across the city, my team was mobilizing. Assistant Director Coleman was notifying Deputy Director Grant. Grant was accessing the security feed. Within minutes, 16 of the highest-ranking officials in the FBI were watching Miller's every move, listening to his every word, all in real time. Grant's finger would be hovering over the intervention button, but he knew my strategy. I wasn't just experiencing this. I was documenting a systemic cancer from the inside. Let it play out, he would have ordered, following my instructions to the letter. Miller walked back in, a smug smile on his face, completely oblivious to the fact that his entire world was being dismantled piece by piece by an audience of the most powerful people in federal law enforcement. He was the star of a show he didn't even know he was in, and the finale was coming. Miller slapped a stack of papers onto the metal desk. The sound was sharp, violent in the small room. "Detention documentation," he announced with a tone of bureaucratic glee. "You failed to meet security clearance." He slid the forms toward me, tapping a signature line. "Sign here. Acknowledges you were denied entry for non-compliance." I scanned the document. Buried in the fine print was a waiver of rights. "I'm not signing this," I said simply. A muscle in his jaw tightened. He reached for a cup of dark soda he'd placed precariously on the edge of the desk. With a movement that was far too deliberate to be an accident, his elbow nudged it. The sticky, dark liquid splashed all over my beige silk top. "Clumsy me," he said, a fake sympathy dripping from his voice as he offered a handful of rough paper towels. The cold, wet fabric clung to my skin, a final, petty act of degradation. I took the napkins, dabbing at the stain, my eyes never leaving his. "Thank you," I said, each syllable a perfectly polished stone. The door opened. A man in a suit, his badge identifying him as Mr. Chun, the office manager, peered in. "Is there an issue here?" he asked, his eyes darting between us. "Security matter," Miller snapped. "Not your department. This woman has been detained for quite some time." Chun persisted, a hint of courage in his voice. "Has her identity been verified through the central database?" Miller's posture changed. He puffed out his chest. "Maybe I should review your access credentials, Chun. See if they're still appropriate." The threat was naked, brutal. I saw Chin's resolve crumble. He muttered an excuse and retreated. "I'll find you later," Miller called after him, the promise hanging in the air like poison. At FBI headquarters, my team was digging. They pulled Miller's file. 17 similar incidents over 12 years. Each complaint had vanished, and each one was connected through a maze of shell companies and back channels to the same security contractor, Aegis Secure Solutions. Back in the room, Miller dropped all pretense. "Your kind always thinks the rules don't apply," he spat, leaning in close. "Always looking for special treatment. But I'm here to make sure everybody gets exactly what they deserve." He leaned in even closer, his voice a venomous whisper. "You know what happens to troublemakers in custody? They have accidents. I need medical attention," I announced, my hand pressed to my chest. "My heart is racing. I'd like a witness present. He studied me, searching for a lie. Convenient timing. No one's falling for that act. I'm not acting, I replied evenly. And denying medical care to a detainee is a violation of Section 4.7 of the Federal Security Protocols. The flicker of surprise on his face was priceless. He hadn't expected me to know the rulebook better than he did. He quickly recovered, scribbling on a notepad, claiming medical distress to obstruct security procedures. Possible psychological instability noted. He was building his paper fortress, brick by careful brick, unaware that my team was watching him build his own gallows. The door opened again. It was Davies, his partner. Any update on the verification? He asked, pointedly not looking at me. Still processing, Miller growled. Go monitor the east entrance. Look, Davies said, his voice low. Maybe we should just let her go with a warning. It's been over an hour. Are you questioning my judgment? Miller's voice boomed, a public shaming. Because I can add insubordination to today's report. Davies defeated. No, just checking in. He retreated, a man broken by years of complicity. Miller then turned his attention to my purse. He upended it, my personal belongings cascading across the desk. His fingers sifted through them until they found a plastic card with the FBI logo. Well, he said, holding it up. Fake federal ID. That's a serious offense. The card was clearly marked FBI Athletic Facilities, but he saw only what he wanted to see. Impersonating a federal officer. Now we're getting somewhere. Just then, Assistant Security Director Russo appeared in the doorway, brought by the now panicked Mr. Chun. Miller, what's the status? Potential security breach, Miller said, standing taller. Subject attempted entry with falsified credentials and a counterfeit FBI ID. I'm preparing charges. Have you run her through NCIC? Russo asked, frowning. I know how to do my job, Miller retorted. Maybe you should be more concerned about the contractor renewal evaluations. I hear my uncle is quite interested in performance reviews this quarter. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. His uncle, a senior VP at Aegis. That was his shield. That was the root of the rot. Russo's face hardened, but he stepped back, choosing a battle he thought he could win later. It was a choice he would come to regret. As they left, I saw the indicator light on the camera change from steady red to blinking. Executive override. My team was now in full control. Miller turned back to his computer, a triumphant sneer on his face. Preparing your removal documentation, he announced. You'll be blacklisted from all federal facilities. Permanently. He picked up the phone and dialed. This is Officer Miller. I need local police assistance with a trespasser impersonating a federal agent. He gave the address, adding, approach with caution. Subject has shown signs of instability. He was creating his own reality, one keystroke and one lie at a time. I decided to give him a little more rope. Why are you doing this? I asked, my tone one of genuine curiosity. He paused. Doing what? My job. Treating me differently. I'm applying proper protocols to a suspicious individual. What made me suspicious? I pressed gently. The trap was set. He walked right into it. Experience, he said. 15 years at this desk teaches you to recognize who belongs and who doesn't. And I don't belong because people like you always have an agenda. He burst out, his fingers hammering the keyboard. Always trying to get where you shouldn't be. Someone needs to maintain standards. Someone needs to protect these institutions from being overrun. Every word was a confession. Every syllable was a nail in his coffin. A commotion in the hallway signaled the arrival of local police. Wait here, he instructed, leaving a junior officer at the door before striding out to meet them, a conquering hero in his own mind. He never made it. Officer Miller, a voice, calm and laced with steel, cut through the lobby's tense silence. I believe you're about to meet the FBI director. Deputy Director Grant stood in the doorway, his 6 feet 4 inches frame radiating an authority that Miller could only dream of. Behind him stood 4 senior agents, forming an impassable wall. Miller's face shifted from irritation to relief when he saw Grant's credentials. Sir, thank you for responding. I've detained a woman attempting to infiltrate your facility with falsified credentials. Grant said nothing. He simply stepped aside. She's been belligerent, uncooperative, and presented a counterfeit FBI ID. Miller continued, his narrative gaining momentum. I've already contacted local police to process her arrest. And Officer Miller, Grant interrupted, his voice quiet but deadly. Have you ever met FBI Director Alina Davis? The words hit Miller like a physical blow. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He looked from Grant to me, his brain short-circuiting as reality violently reasserted itself. I rose from my chair. Grant extended a hand to me. Director Davis, he said, his voice resonating through the now silent lobby. On behalf of the Philadelphia field office, I deeply apologize for this unfortunate reception. Deputy Director Grant, I acknowledged with a nod. I see you received my signal. Yes, Director. We've been monitoring for the past 47 minutes. Grant turned his gaze back to Miller, whose skin was now a pasty, grayish color. Officer Miller, you've just participated in an unannounced field inspection of security protocols and bias incident response. I was just following procedure, he stammered, his bravado shattering into a million pieces. She didn't identify herself. Is threatening to make someone disappear standard procedure, officer? Grant asked, holding up a tablet. He tapped the screen, and Miller's own voice filled the room. People who don't belong disappear all the time. No one would even look for someone like you. Miller's eyes darted frantically to the security camera, its blinking red light now a merciless, mocking eye. I stepped forward. Officer Miller, I began, my voice clear and cold. In the past 90 minutes, you have committed 17 separate violations of federal security protocols, 11 violations of civil rights statutes, for instances of abuse of authority, and 3 documented acts of intimidation. This field office has the highest number of discrimination complaints in the Bureau, complaints that mysteriously vanish. Your behavior today was the final piece of evidence in a 6-month investigation into systemic corruption within federal security contractors. His gaze flew to Davies, to Alex, to Chun and Russo, all watching from a distance, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. I was just doing my job, he whispered, the words hollow. No, I corrected him. You were abusing your position to indulge your personal prejudice. And you've been doing it for years. Grant gestured to 2 of his agents. Officer Miller, please surrender your security credentials. You are being placed on administrative leave, pending a full investigation. As the badge was unpinned from his chest, the weight of his actions finally crashed down on him. It was the look of a man who had just stepped off a cliff he never knew was there. This isn't just about you, Officer Miller, I said calmly. This is about everyone who enabled you. And I have a list. The 72 hours that followed were a whirlwind of controlled chaos. My teams descended on the field office, and the rot we uncovered was deeper than I could have imagined. Miller wasn't a bad apple. He was a symptom of a diseased tree. The investigation ripped through Aegis Secure Solutions, exposing a conspiracy of bribery, intimidation, and cover-ups that reached all the way to Miller's uncle in the executive suite. He and a dozen others were indicted. The company's federal contracts were terminated, and the ensuing scandal forced them into bankruptcy and rebranding under federal oversight. But my goal was never just about punishment. It was about change. 1 year later, I walked through those same revolving doors. The transformation was breathtaking. The dark, intimidating security checkpoint was gone, replaced with an open, well-lit space. A digital dashboard on the wall displayed real-time metrics. Average wait time, secondary screening rates, and complaint resolutions. The security team was a reflection of the country they served, diverse, professional, and courteous. Alex, the intern who had tried to offer me water, was now a full-time compliance officer, training new hires. Our approach is consistency, I heard him tell a group of trainees. Every visitor receives the same screening, regardless of appearance, accent, or attire. Davies, who had found his courage and testified against Miller, was now leading internal affairs briefings, his voice filled with a purpose I'd never heard before. I walked through the checkpoint. The young officer on duty processed my ID with efficient, respectful professionalism. She had no idea who I was. I was just another visitor receiving the same treatment as everyone else, exactly as it should be. That day, standing in that cold lobby, I felt the full weight of Miller's hatred. He tried to make me feel small, invisible, like I didn't belong. He tried to erase me. But what he didn't understand is that true power isn't about making people disappear. It's about making sure that every single person is finally and truly seen. My experience was a painful but necessary catalyst. It forced an entire system to look in the mirror and confront the ugliness it had ignored for far too long. The changes we made weren't just about new rules and protocols. They were about restoring dignity. My 90 minutes of humiliation bought years of respectful treatment for countless people who would follow. And that's a price I would pay again in a heartbeat. This story is a reminder that one person's courage can challenge a corrupt system. If you've ever faced injustice and fought back, share your story in the comments below. Let's create a space of strength and support. And please, always comment with respect for everyone's experiences. If you believe in accountability, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and make sure you subscribe for more stories of justice served. Thanks for watching.